Chapter 1. Hey there, sleepyheads. Tonight we drift downstream on the Nile, warm moonlight spilling across black water, the air thick with incense, and fig leaves curling in the breeze. You're not just anyone tonight. You're her, the queen who made empires kneel, who dined with gods and danced with generals. You're Cleopatra. Perfume clings to your skin. Your bare feet whisper across polished marble floors, and the faint sound of lyres floats from the garden. Somewhere out there, Alexandria, your jewel of a city, glows with late-night lamps and murmurs of foreign tongues, Greek, Latin, Egyptian, the rhythms of empires crashing into each other and into you. You lean on the balcony, cool stone pressing your palms as you look across the city you built in your image. And yet, tonight, something is different. You feel it deep in your bones, the end curling near like a cat to the fire. Let's be honest, you probably won't survive this. But for now, hush. There's still time. A few hours left to rewind through memory, to swim backward through the river of your life until the first drop met the ocean. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. No pressure, well, a little pressure. Just a light nudge from your favorite insomniac pharaoh. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing how far this royal barge sails. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The night air smells like jasmine and wet papyrus. You close your eyes, and just like that, you're floating. Your city is Alexandria, the melting pot of East and West, where priests in leopard skins walk beside Roman senators, and Greek philosophers whisper theories about stars into scrolls that catch fire too easily. You can't tell anymore if this place belongs to you or if you belong to it. You remember the city from when you were a child. It was bigger then, or maybe you were smaller. The streets were a puzzle of gold and granite, and your father, Ptolemy XII, would parade through like a god, poorly disguised as a king. He was a trembling man, fond of wine and exile. And you, tiny you, had to learn how to smile through public disasters. Historians still argue whether you were born in 69 BCE, or perhaps a year later, but you never really cared for numbers. You always measured time in more important things, the tilt of the sun on the harbor, the softness of Antony's voice when he first called you my Isis, or the sharp weight of a crown too heavy for any teenage girl. And God's the crown. It's not just gold, it's strategy, performance, a helmet of diplomacy, with sharp edges that slice you when you bow too low. The marble beneath your feet is cold, even in high summer. You walk barefoot toward the private wing of the palace, trailing a hand across the limestone reliefs carved with falcons, cobras, and the story of Isis and Osiris. Your story too. You've long blurred the line between myth and memory. Did you really seduce Julius Caesar wrapped in a rug? Or was it linen? Or was the whole tale embroidered by someone in Rome, desperate for drama? You smile. Drama always suited you. Outside, the port murmurs with waves and late-night fishermen. You always loved the harbor, where the Nile spills into the sea like an offering. The lighthouse of Pharos still burns, even now, guiding ships and soldiers home. Or maybe, to war. A cat darts past you, silent as a whisper, white with one green eye and one gold, probably a temple stray. Or, Bastet herself checking in. You step into the mosaic courtyard, where a fountain shaped like a lotus still trickles, even as the empire dries at the edges. Cleopatra, they used to call you Isis, the new Isis. But goddesses don't get gray hairs, do they? You sit by the fountain and trail your fingers through the water, stirring the stars reflected there. Once in this very spot, you watched Caesarion take his first steps, your son with Julius Caesar, little king of kings. You named him his heir, though everyone whispered. Even now, Octavian in Rome calls him the boy pretender. You don't have the energy to correct him anymore. A eunuch servant appears at a distance, then vanishes again. You don't need anything, just space. And time. You close your eyes. It's strange, isn't it, how power so often smells like cinnamon and myrrh. The library, the throne room, the perfume chamber, everywhere in Alexandria is steeped in spices, carried by camels from Kush and ships from India. You've always surrounded yourself with fragrance, part strategy, part seduction, part rebellion against the stink of politics. Once you made your own eyeliner from crushed carob pods and crocodile dung. Don't laugh. It worked. The ancient Egyptians knew their skincare. Even now, you remember the sharp sting when you first applied it as a teenager. Before a public address, channeling your inner goddess, you looked fierce, you looked grown, you looked ready to lie, convincingly, to 5 different ambassadors. The night is thick with the weight of stars. The air still carries heat from the afternoon, but the wind from the desert begins to stir. You lie back against a cushion and look up at the sky. Orion watches you from above. You wonder, will anyone remember this moment? The history scrolls never capture the in-betweens. They say Cleopatra ruled and Cleopatra fell. But not Cleopatra lay awake at midnight wondering if her eyeliner made her look too dramatic. Probably did, but that was the point. A breeze shifts the date palms. You hear the distant call of a flute from the merchant quarters. Somewhere far across the palace, a servant spills wine. You don't flinch. The silence afterward is deeper. Funny thing about ruling, it's lonelier than anyone warns you. Even with 100 courtiers, 1,000 servants, and lovers who move like lions, at the end of the day, the decisions are yours. Which alliances to forge, which children to protect, which truths to bury. The Nile was your first teacher, always moving, never pausing, sometimes flooding, sometimes withholding. You learned early to adapt and to pretend you weren't drowning. Tonight, you feel the river rising again. You remember when you first saw the Roman ships in your harbor, not Khazars, but others. So many hulls painted red, so many eagle standards glinting like accusations in the sun. They came smiling, offering trade. Later, they offered war. And now, Octavian's legions wait beyond the city, patient as scorpions. Rome is always patient. You wonder if he's dreaming too. Does he imagine your death? Does he write speeches about your shame? Probably. He's a boring man with big ambitions. The guards at the gate have been bribed, threatened, replaced. You can't tell anymore who serves you out of loyalty, and who stays only for the chance to loot the corpse of an empire. But here, in this hour, there is only the night. You, the ghosts of lovers past, the promise of morning you may not meet. And still, you are queen. You stand slowly and stretch, your bones whispering in protest. You head toward the east wing, where your private chamber waits. Somewhere inside, a basket lies hidden, covered in figs, guarded by silence. But not yet, not quite yet. There is still more dreaming to do. The moon above you shifts behind clouds, its silver face retreating like a coin dropped into water. And you follow it down. Chapter 2. You wake alone. The silk around you is twisted, warm in patches where your body sought comfort, but empty where another presence used to be. The scent of saffron oil lingers in the air, faintly sour now that the body it clung to is gone. The sheets whisper as you sit up, bare shoulders brushing against the breeze drifting through the open window. Antony isn't here. He hasn't been for days, not really. His body might still be within the palace walls, pacing, brooding, swallowing wine by the amphora. But the man you loved, the one who laughed with his whole chest, who quoted Homer while wearing nothing but a lion skin, that man has already started to vanish. You press your fingers to your temples, pulling back the dreams that clung to your mind like spider silk. The same dream again. The asp coiled at your breast, its eyes glassy as lapis, blinking without fear, its tongue flickering, with a whisper that feels like prophecy. Historians still argue whether Cleopatra truly dreamed of her death, or whether it was invented by poets much later. But you know what you saw. The bite wasn't pain, it was peace. Almost. You rise, wrapping a robe around you, the linen soft from dozens of washings, embroidered in faded thread by a woman you once trusted, who's now likely bargaining with the Romans. The palace is quieter than usual. Alexandria's hush feels ominous now, like a crowd holding its breath before something breaks. The servants know better than to disturb you this early. The guards outside your chamber, if they're still loyal, pretend not to notice as you pad down the marble hallway. You've never liked being caged, not by Rome, not by protocol, and certainly not by morning. The first light is just beginning to spill across the floor in golden shards. You stop in front of the bronze mirror. The face looking back at you isn't the one Rome painted on its coins, the siren of the Nile, the she-demon in pearls. No, this face is human. Awake, tired. A small scar cuts through your left eyebrow, a childhood accident the court poets always airbrushed out. Your eyes are lined in faded kohl, smudged from sleep. One shoulder still bears the bite of a mosquito from last night. Despite the citronella braziers, You scratch it absently. Even queens bleed. You lean forward, watching your breath bog the metal briefly. Is this what they'll remember? You move toward the chamber balcony, pulling the curtain aside. Below, the palace gardens stretch toward the harbor, a painting in green and gold and shadow. The same harbor where Caesar first arrived, where Antony's fleet once filled the horizon. Now only a few merchant ships bob there, trying to look smaller, less noticeable. Rome watches everything, and the people know it. You remember when Alexandria adored you, the golden years, market stalls overrun with roses, playwrights composing odes in your name, your face painted on every temple wall beside Isis. There were parades then, the kind where children threw lotus petals, and wine flowed like the Nile at flood season. Now your name is a prayer whispered behind closed doors, sometimes a blessing, sometimes a curse. You descend into the garden barefoot. The grass is damp with dew, soft as velvet. Somewhere above, ibis birds are waking, rustling the palm leaves with sluggish wings. One cries out, a lonely, hoarse wail that echoes across the courtyard. It sounds like a warning. You pass under an archway of blue-flowered vines. Someone told you the name once, but it's lost in the whirl of memory. You trail a finger through a fountain. The fish are still there, lazy flashes of orange and gold. A memory stirs. Caesar, laughing beside this very fountain, watching Khazarian try to catch a fish with his bare hands. The boy had fallen in, soaked and squealing. You remember the way Caesar knelt, unbothered by the wet marble, lifting his son in arms that had once held Gaul, and crossed the Rubicon. He wasn't soft, but with you, he'd sometimes let himself pretend. Then came March, Rome, daggers, and silence. You sink onto a stone bench beneath the sycamore fig tree. Its leaves rattle gently in the breeze, a rhythm older than dynasties. Across the garden, a pair of guards whisper too closely. You catch the word Octavian in passing, followed by an abrupt silence when they realize your gaze has found them. One coughs, bows too deeply, and scuttles out of view. You don't need spies to know what's happening. Octavian waits, not far from Alexandria now, his ships closer each day, his letters sharper with each courier. Always veiled threats, wrapped in honeyed flattery. He calls you a queen, but only when it suits him. Mostly, he calls you that woman of Egypt, like an illness, like a ghost. You wish you could hate him, but hate is too tiring. Instead, you focus on the garden. These plants were imported from Nubia. These lotus flowers grown in sacred pools, blessed by priests whose bones have long turned to salt. The garden is your sanctuary, your memory palace. You know every leaf, every curve of the path. But today, it feels different, less permanent, as if the roots are slowly letting go of the soil. You close your eyes and let the warmth settle on your skin. There was a time when you believed you could outlast Rome, that if you played the right song, wore the right gown, held your wine just so, and smiled just sharply enough, you could bend even fate. But Rome doesn't bend, it consumes. You feel it in your bones, in the stillness, in the taste of fear you no longer try to hide. A voice interrupts your thoughts. Majesty? A quiet murmur behind you. It's Ira's, faithful, unshakable Ira's, one of the few who never abandoned you, who still weaves your hair each morning. Even when your hands tremble too much to help, you glance over your shoulder. She holds a tray with pomegranate juice and a small scroll. The seal is Roman. You accept both. Sip the juice. Bitter. Too fresh. Then your thumb breaks the wax. It's short. No threats. No flattery. Just one line. Rome expects your answer before the sun sets. No name. No signature. But you recognize Octavian's chill in every word. You roll the scroll back up, tighter than necessary, and hand it back to Iris. Burn it, you say without looking. She hesitates, then bows. Yes, Majesty. As she walks away, you watch the sunlight catch on her earrings, gifts from you last spring, when Antony still believed in victory. And you still believed in Antony. Your stomach twists, not from fear, from the growing certainty that you must decide. And not tomorrow. Now, you rise. The path back to your chamber seems longer than before, the air heavier like the sky has settled a little closer to the ground. Back inside, you find the oil lamp still flickering. You pass your hand over it, dimming it. You've always preferred shadows for thinking. The basket of figs sits in the corner, covered in linen, still untouched. You ignore it. You sit at your writing desk, reaching for a sheet of papyrus. Your hand hovers over the ink. What could you even write to Rome that hasn't already been said? That you are not afraid? That you still claim divinity? That you will not be paraded through Roman streets in chains? The words don't come. Instead, you sketch spirals, tiny, endless spirals, until the ink runs dry. You stare at the curling designs, your heartbeat slowing. Spirals are eternal, like the Nile, like stories, like the asp in your dreams, circling your wrist like a bracelet, then tightening. Your breath catches. The day has begun, and you are still here, but the silence is growing, and soon someone will come knocking, not with love, but with the end. You stand steady now, a queen again. Asterisk, asterisk, today you will decide how your story is told. Chapter 3. You run your fingers along the carved edge of your writing table. The grain of the wood is soft and weathered, imported cedar from the Levant. A gift, long ago, one of those diplomatic bribes dressed up as generosity. That's the thing about gifts in your world. They're rarely free. They come with treaties, marriage offers, or veiled suggestions of war. You're not writing today. No more scrolls. No more carefully worded letters dipped in honey and politics. Not when your thoughts drift so easily to Rome, and to him. Ah, Julius. It's hard to say his name aloud now, with so many ears trained on every syllable you utter. But here, in this hour of private unraveling, you can afford to remember, the air smells like sea salt and old parchment. A soft breeze tugs at the curtains, lifting them just enough to let in a ribbon of light. And suddenly, you're not in Alexandria anymore. You're in Rome, not in body, but memory. You walk again along the Tiber, the dust of the Forum clinging to your sandals, the sun sharper there than it ever is at home. You remember the uneasy glances cast your way. Some men saw a queen, others saw a threat with painted lips and a golden diadem. But Caesar, he saw something else entirely. You were still young then, barely 21. Your father had died. The throne was yours, and not yours. And your brother husband was more puppet than partner. The court was knives hidden behind painted fans. And you were already learning how to outstep every blade. Then came Julius Gaius Caesar, marching into Alexandria like he owned it. Because Rome believed it did. A conqueror in sandals, balding and brilliant, and arrogant enough to treat you not as a piece of Egypt, but as Egypt itself. Historians love to tell the story of how you entered his chambers rolled inside a carpet, or a linen sack, depending on the scroll. They picture you bare-shouldered, smirking, clever as ever, catching him off guard. Was it true? Let them argue. You remember only this. You needed him, and he liked to be needed. You made yourself the answer to his ambition, a queen in trouble, a goddess in distress. But never a victim. You both knew what the other wanted. He wanted Egypt stable and loyal. You wanted Rome's protection. He got his port. You got your throne. It was, in some strange and inconvenient way, love, but not love like Antony. Julius was the storm that rearranged the coastline. Antony was the fire that danced inside your lungs. Still, there was sweetness in those Roman days. The way Caesarion giggled when Caesar held him high in the garden near the Janiculum Hill. The villa they gave you, spacious, opulent. A gilded cage where no Roman woman dared visit you. You were exoticized, feared, desired. A scandal walking on two legs. Oh, and they whispered, Cleopatra, serpent of the Nile. That woman has bewitched our general, a queen with the soul of a temptress. Rome has always had a problem with powerful women, especially the kind who didn't apologize for it. But you remember the banquets, the laughter, the way Caesar read Virgil aloud by torchlight, as though the words were meant for you alone, and how you watched his fingers, lined with age, yet steady as he sketched city plans into the dust. He wanted to rebuild the world, and you? You wanted to sit beside him as it happened, but the Senate had other plans. They said he wanted to be king, to be God, to make Rome kneel, so they stabbed him, dozens of times, right there beneath the statue of Pompey, where the blood puddled like spilled wine. You weren't in Rome when it happened, but you felt it. The moment the news arrived, the city of Alexandria held its breath. And you broke something. Not aloud, not in public, but inside, something shattered. And from the pieces, you began to build the version of yourself that could survive even Rome's knives. Back in the present, you inhale, The scent of the sea is fainter now. Alexandria has shifted again beneath your feet. You're still in your chamber. The morning has settled. The noise of servants stirs faintly in the distance. Murmured instructions. The clatter of breakfast trays. The brushing of tapestries being straightened just so. All the useless rituals of court life still going through the motions, while the world outside prepares to crumble. You walk slowly to the edge of your vanity and pick up a vial of rose oil. The stopper sticks for a moment, then releases with a soft pop. You dab it onto your wrists, behind your ears. Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, last of the Ptolemies, never greets death without perfume. Your reflection in the mirror doesn't flinch. She just watches. There's a knock at the door, 3 taps. Deliberate. It's Charmian this time, your other shadow. If Iris is your breath, Charmian is your spine. She enters without waiting for your approval. The intimacy of long service has dissolved such formalities. He's asked to see you, she says quietly. Again? You don't need to ask who. Mark Antony. You sigh, not from annoyance, but from the weight of grief that still hasn't found a proper shelf to sit on. Is he sober? Charmian hesitates. Sober enough to be desperate. You nod. Then let's see him. She opens the door wider. No guards needed. No fanfare, just silence. You cross the corridor. Each step echoes. You know this palace better than any map. You know the creaks in the floor, the spots where the plaster is soft from humidity, the ancient mural in the southern hall that hides your private escape route. It's all yours, and soon, none of it will be. Antony waits in one of the sunrooms, slouched against a column. His hair's uncombed, his tunic stained, but he still carries that lion's presence, or at least the memory of it. He looks up as you enter. Cleopatra, he says, just your name. No title, no pet names, no performance. You stand there a moment, just looking at him. He looks like a man half drowned, lost somewhere between what he was and what he fears he's becoming. We're not dead yet, you say. No, he answers, but Roan's sharpening the knife. You sit opposite him. The sun paints his features in harsh lines. There's a map between you, unrolled and pinned with stones. It's marked in ink and worry. Arrows, ship counts, legions, the same map he's stared at for days now, as if willing the symbols to move themselves. There's still one fleet at Pelusium, he mutters. If we call them now, cut the Roman advance. You place your hand on the map. It won't matter. He exhales sharply. You've already decided. No, you say gently. Rome has. He slams a fist down, startling a nearby bird into flight. Octavian wants you in chains. He wants our son in chains. You don't flinch. And if we fight now, what remains for him to inherit? Antony turns away. His profile could still inspire statues. But this version of him won't be carved in marble, not like Caesar, not like you, perhaps. We were gods once, he murmurs. No, you say. We played gods, that's the difference. He looks at you, really looks, and for a moment, he sees her, the queen who sailed up the Nile in a golden barge, whose voice was rumored to calm storms, who once made him forget Rome. He takes your hand. It's rough, calloused, a soldier's hand. You don't pull away. I don't want to be remembered like this, he says. You nod. Then don't let them write your ending. Outside, the city is stirring louder now. You hear the call of merchants, the clink of shields, the warning horns from the eastern wall. Time is shifting again. You both know what's coming. But for this moment, you are still Cleopatra and Antony. Not myths, not ruins, just two people in love, at the edge of the world. You kiss his cheek. He smells like cedar, and wine, and regret. Whatever you choose, you whisper, choose it with pride. Then you rise. You do not look back, because queens do not flinch. Chapter 4. The garden is louder now, not with music or lauder, but with the clatter of sandals on stone, the scrape of armor, the murmured dread that clings to walls when everyone knows the end is approaching, and no one wants to be the one to say it out loud. You walk through it anyway. Your attendants scatter at your presence, not in fear, but in reverence. No one meets your gaze for too long. No one wants to see if the queen has begun to unravel. That would make things too real. And so they bow, murmur your titles, and press themselves into alcoves while you pass, like ghosts shrinking from a flame. You don't blame them. After all, Alexandria is a city that's seen too many rulers fall. This palace, You built it with marble and myth, every corridor, every courtyard, lined with symbols meant to remind people that this place was the beating heart of a kingdom. You filled it with gods. You made Alexandria more than a capital. You made it an idea. Now it echoes. A hall once gilded with song now hosts only quiet footsteps and dry fountains. You pause beneath a colonnade where peacocks used to strut during the banquets. The birds are gone now, either eaten or vanished. One of the guards probably sold them off. Everyone's hedging bets, even the servants. You can almost hear the laughter from months ago, wine-soaked, triumphant. Antony standing on a marble table reciting Bad Homer, you lounging nearby, in a gown stitched with silver thread, and a smirk sharper than any sword. That was the banquet. The banquet. You remember it, because it was the last time you pretended everything was fine. The last time you let the music drown out the truth. You summoned every artist in the city, every dancer, every wandering poet who still had the courage to sing, with Rome breathing down their necks. You had them deck the halls in flowers from Upper Egypt, so many the floors were slick with petals. You ordered honey from the Red Sea caravans, cinnamon from the east, and oysters still wriggling in their shells. You gave Alexandria the illusion of safety, and then you toasted to lies. Your goblet was solid gold, heavy in your hand, etched with images of the Nile gods cradling children made in your likeness. You raised it high and called out to Isis, to Osiris, to Dionysus, to the whole sprawling pantheon of borrowed and native gods that might still be listening. Let the world know, you said, that Alexandria feasts in the face of fear. They cheered, of course. The people always do when you give them something to believe in, even if it's only for a night. Even Antony played his part. He threw his head back and roared like a hero from legend. He had that glint in his eye, the same one he used when chasing you through curtains at midnight, when the torches burned low and the rest of the empire slept. He believed too, or tried to. That night you danced, in front of everyone, a queen unmasked. You moved through the hall with grace you hadn't felt since your youth. You let the rhythm of ancient drums take over. Let your hips tell the story of queens before you. Arsinoe, Berenice, even the old line of goddesses whose names are now forgotten. People wept, some from awe, some from knowing it would never happen again. You ended the night standing beside Antony, your hands clasped, your breath warm against his cheek, as you whispered something foolish like, "Maybe we'll live forever." And the very next morning, Rome moved closer. You never hosted another banquet. Now, you walk the same halls, in silence. The marble beneath your sandals is colder than you remember. Even the mosaics seem faded. You pause at one, your favorite. A hunting scene depicting Alexander the Great, slaying a lion with a spear while riding a galloping horse. It's beautifully unrealistic. No one fights lions like that. But that was always the point. Make the impossible look easy. Alexander, the city's namesake, he would have hated what it's become. The greatest conqueror in history, reduced to a tourist attraction. His tomb lost somewhere beneath this city, maybe, or stolen, or swallowed by sand. Historians still argue whether you ever found his tomb. Some say you prayed there. Others think it was already gone by your time. Either way, you never told anyone the truth. Some secrets belong to queens alone. Your footsteps lead you to the temple wing. It's quieter here, even for Alexandria. The air smells older, dust and incense and the slow erosion of time. You pass columns carved with images of Ra and Isis, where shadows pool like ink, and everything feels slightly heavier. There's a chapel here, one you had restored after Caesar died. You wanted something old, something sacred, something that didn't ask questions. You step inside now, the doors creaking just enough to make you smile. You're greeted not by priests, but by memory. You remember kneeling here once, fingers curled around a votive lamp, begging Isis for a sign. That was before the Battle of Actium, before Antony's mind began to fray, before Octavian started calling you a witch in Senate meetings, and drawing crude cartoons of you sitting on Rome's throne. You prayed, you lit incense, you wept, and nothing changed. That's the funny thing about gods. They rarely interfere, especially with queens. You move to the altar and touch the carved stone. Cool, worn from centuries of prayer. You whisper something, not a spell, not a plea, just a name, Khazarian, your son. He's the only one who matters now, the last thread connecting you to a future that doesn't end in ruins. You've kept him hidden, moved him from palace to palace, wrapped in false names and guarded by mercenaries more loyal to gold than to blood. He's too young to fight, too clever to stay. And if Octavian finds him, you can't finish that thought. Instead, you close your eyes. The past brushes against you like silk in a breeze. You're a girl again, just 16, watching your brother king being drowned in bathwater on someone's command. You're 19, watching your father cough up blood and wine as Rome whispers in his ear. You're 25, giving birth on linens soaked with opium, while priests chant prayers outside the door. You're every version of yourself, all at once. And still, you stand. A noise pulls you back. Rapid footsteps. You open your eyes. It's Iris. She looks breathless. Her robe is askew. Her eyes too wide. You know that look. It's the same one people wore the day the library burned. Majesty, she gasps. There was a message. Not a scroll, a man. You step forward. From where? Pelusium. The commander says Octavian's ships have circled. He's moving inland. They'll reach the city gates in 3 days. 3 days. That's less than you thought. Fewer hours to decide. Less time to vanish your son. Less room to breathe. You nod slowly. Send word to the dockmaster. Prepare the barge. I want it ready by sundown. Iris hesitates. To escape? You don't answer. Not yet. Because you're still thinking of the chapel, of the mosaics, of the banquet laughter that now lives only in corners of your mind. No, you won't run. Not yet. Maybe not at all. But it never hurts to have a boat ready. You return to your chambers. The basket of figs still waits. Still covered. Still breathing quietly under linen. Charming is already inside. She's straightening your cosmetics table, the way she always does when she's anxious. She doesn't look up when she says, "He's gone." You pause. Gone where? She finally meets your eyes. Antony. The barracks say he left on foot, alone, sword in hand. You blink. She doesn't continue. She doesn't need to. The silence fills in the rest. Outside, a gull cries overhead. The sound echoes strangely through the palace corridors. You sit on the edge of your bed. Your robe slips off one shoulder. You don't fix it. You just breathe. Because now it begins. The last game. The final move. And if Rome thinks she'll walk barefoot into their victory parade, they have misunderstood the story. You may not win, but you will choose your ending. And that, Rome cannot take. Chapter 5, you sit in silence. Not the quiet kind, the loaded, pressing kind. The kind that hums just under the surface of everything. The kind that waits. Charmian stands nearby, arms folded tightly, jaw clenched. She's not just your handmaid. She's part of your soul at this point. She's watched your hair turn darker and then lighter again with all the rituals. Watched you cry into temple cushions when no one else dared enter. Helped you poison your enemy's cups. With a steady hand and no questions asked. Now she just watches you, like she's waiting for your last command. The sun through the high lattice windows makes your room glow with honey-colored light. Everything looks soft, sweet, deceptive. You rise slowly. Your feet feel heavier than they should, but you keep walking. I need to know, you murmur, where he went. Charmian doesn't even blink. He said nothing, just strapped on his sword and walked out. Of course he didn't say goodbye. Antony never does goodbyes. He prefers dramatic exits. Curtains fluttering, wine bottles overturned, declarations halfway between poetry and madness. Even now, he's writing himself into some doomed legend, charging off to die on his own terms. Like a kills in an alleyway, you move to the window. Alexandria's rooftops stretch beneath you. Gold, terracotta, sea-worn white. The sprawl of your city, your kingdom, your pride. The wind smells like crushed mint and ash. You squint toward the eastern quarter. And there, on the edge of the horizon, black sails. You don't need to count them. You know, Octavian's fleet. A month ago, you could still pretend. Still drink wine from silver cups and roll your eyes at Rome's arrogance. But today, the ships are real, the soldiers are real, and the empire you built is breathing its last hours. You leave the window. Summon Caesarion, you say. No guards, no courtiers, just him. Charmian hesitates. Majesty, is that wise? You smile faintly. Since when has wise ever mattered? She bows and vanishes through the door. You move toward the large cedar chest at the foot of your bed. The hinges creak, an old, familiar sound. Inside, silk robes wrapped in spices, perfumed scrolls from poets long dead, and a single curved dagger, its hilt inlaid with lapis and ivory. You don't touch the dagger, not yet. Instead, you lift out a small, folded bundle of papyrus, a letter, sealed with beeswax, marked only with a single painted eye, your symbol. It's addressed to your son, unopened, unread, written long ago in a burst of midnight clarity, after a dream that left your heart shaking and your fingers numb. You hold the letter between two fingers, light, so light, and yet it feels like the heaviest thing in Egypt. You were never meant to be a mother, not in the soft, lullaby-singing way, but you loved him, not because he was Caesar's son, not because he was a living claim to power, but because in him you saw something that felt possible, a bridge between two worlds, a boy with Egypt's eyes and Rome's stubborn jaw, a future you might never live to see, but could at least die protecting. A knock, 3 soft raps, then the door opens, and there he is, Caesarion, tall already, taller than you expected. He's still a boy really, but the kind who moves like a man, trying very hard not to show how scared he is. His tunic is too fine, his sandals too clean. He hasn't been in the dirt enough. Not yet. You smile. He doesn't. Mother, he says quietly. Come in, you reply, and gesture to the cushion across from your seat. He walks slowly. He has Caesar's gait, deliberate, slightly arrogant, like the world should shift to accommodate him. It's charming, annoying, and deeply dangerous. You pour him pomegranate juice yourself. He frowns. That's a servant's task. You raise an eyebrow. You'll find queens are the best servants. When the empire begins to fall, he takes the cup without another word. The silence between you settles like dust. Then you ask the question that's been hiding behind your teeth all morning. What do you want to become? He blinks. What? A man? A king? A god? What is it you want to be remembered as? He sets the cup down, too hard. The juice ripples. I don't know, he says, too fast. You nod, like that answer is fine. But you know it isn't. You don't have time for uncertainty. Not now, not with Octavian at the gates. You push the letter toward him. He frowns. What is this? Something you'll read later. If I'm gone. His shoulders stiffen. You're not going anywhere. I am, you say softly, but not far, just beyond the veil Roan built, between what they fear and what they can't control. He swallows hard. You see the tremor in his jaw. You lean closer, rest your hand over his. You must leave the city. Today? His eyes widen. No, I stay. I fight. You shake your head. No. You vanish. But they'll think I ran. Let them. I'm Caesar's son. And Caesar died on the Senate floor, stabbed by men who once called him father and friend. He doesn't respond. You lower your voice. You're the last pharaoh of Egypt. Your name is carved into every prayer I offer. You are the fire left after the sun sets. And you will carry Egypt where they cannot erase it. He stares at you, eyes burning. Finally, he says, You don't plan to come with me. You close your eyes, not to lie, just to pause. Then you open them and meet his gaze. No, he starts to speak, but something in your expression stops him. Maybe it's the way your fingers tremble. Maybe it's the way your breath shakes. Maybe it's the faint perfume of lilies in the air, the same kind you used when you gave birth to him. Iris will take you to the docks. You whisper. You'll board under a false name. We've arranged everything. Money, guards, maps. There's a man in Thebes' woe. I'm not afraid. He interrupts. You smile. That's why you must go. And then you do something you haven't done in years. You hug him. He stiffens at first, unused to this kind of softness. Then slowly, he wraps his arms around you. He smells like oil, and dust, and boyhood. You press your lips to his forehead, and say the words you never said aloud. I love you. Then he's gone, taken by Iris and 2 trusted guards, wrapped in a cloak too large for his shoulders. Walking out into the labyrinth of Alexandria's last hours, you stay behind. Because queens don't flee, they prepare. You turn to Charmian, who's returned like a shadow. Have the doors sealed. You say, she nods, and send word to the Romans. Her brow furrows. Now? You nod once. Tell them I'm ready to negotiate. Charmian's mouth tightens. Majesty. I know. You walk to the balcony one last time. Below, Alexandria simmers with unease. A city balancing between memory and ash. You see the great lighthouse in the distance, still standing. One of the last wonders. For now, a soft breeze lifts the edge of your robe. You close your eyes and let the sun warm your face. Somewhere out there, a boy sails toward a future that might never include your name. That's fine, because you've lived 1,000 lifetimes in a single life. You've loved emperors and broken generals. You've ruled. You've danced. You've bled. And you've chosen. And now, you will choose again. Not the figure, not yet. There's one more scene to play. You wake to silence, not the peaceful kind. The kind that sits heady in the walls. The kind that comes when a city is holding its breath, trying to pretend everything is still whole. You open your eyes. Charmian is already there, standing by the doorway. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. You see it in her face. He's gone. You knew it somehow, felt it in the night, in that hollow place deep inside, the one where your father still echoes, where your sisters never grew old, where the first version of yourself quietly vanished. Mark Antony, general, partner, myth, has passed from story into memory. You sit up slowly. Where, you ask? Charmian's voice is soft, tight. The mausoleum. Of course, where else would he go, if not to the tomb built for gods? They say he believed a lie, that you were already dead, whispers planted in his ear by Rome, and like a character in one of the old poems, he chose the tragic ending before knowing the truth. But you were still here. You still are, and when they brought him to you, wounded, fading, it was you who held him. You remember it clearly, the weight of him, heavier than you expected. His breath fast, his skin cold. I thought, he said, you were gone. I'm still here, you whispered, brushing the hair from his brow. His eyes were already dim, the fire in them, so famous, so reckless, almost gone. You should not follow me, and yet I always have. He smiled at that, not the full grin you once loved, but enough. A flicker of the man who walked into your life, like he owned the stars. That was his last gift to you. He passed just after sunset. Now you rise. Charmian helps you dress. No silks, no gold, no perfume or paint. Just plain white linen. Simple, clean. A woman uncloaked. Outside your chambers, the palace murmurs. Footsteps. Half words. The hush of people pretending not to see the truth. Octavian has sent word. He wants an audience. Of course he does. The victor needs his final piece. But you've already made your choice. You will not be paraded through the streets of Rome. Not as a trophy. Not as a warning. You won't be dressed up in gold chains. For strangers to gawk at, mocked by the same voices that once called you goddess. And they will not take your son. They will not write your ending. You walk to the mausoleum. It's cool inside. Quiet. The air smells of cedar and thyme. Antony lies beneath a carved arch, wrapped in linen. A crown of olive leaves rests on his brow. It's slightly crooked. You fix it. Then you sit beside him one last time. He looks, still, like a statue between breath. You take his hand. Cool now, but not unfamiliar. You speak to him in whispers, stories only he would know. The night you sailed beneath stars so bright, they outshone your doubts. The time he defended your name in a crowded marketplace. The way he always pretended to read hieroglyphs, as if he could decode Egypt just by staring long enough. You cry, quietly, not for drama, just for the shape he no longer fills. Charmian waits near the entrance. Eventually, you rise. I want it ready, you say. She doesn't need to ask what you mean. The fig basket? She confirms. You nod. Yes, with the ask. There's a pause. There are other ways, she says gently. Faster, easier. You give her a small smile, but not more powerful, because you understand the shape of legend. You know how stories survive, how symbols outlast speeches. Let them argue. Let them guess. Snake or spell, poison or plan. Let the myth do its work. Charmian goes to prepare. You stay. Just you and Antony. One fine lour. You think of the poets who will rewrite this moment, of Octavian scribes inventing new ways to belittle your name, of the people who will never understand that this was always your story to finish. And strangely, you feel calm, like the gods have finally stepped back and let you speak. Back in your chamber, the basket waits. Figs, ripe and soft, arranged as if for a feast. Under the cloth, a quiet rustle, a warning. The asp is there. Charmian stands at your side. Iris as well, both pale, both steady. You step into the room and close the door behind you. No soldiers, no crowds, just 3 women, and the weight of history pressing against the walls. You sit. The sun glows low through the windows. Its warmth brushes your face. You take a fig and hold it in your palm. You breathe in the scent, sweet, earthy, familiar. Memory floods in. The cry of your child, the warmth of Caesar's hand, the laughter of a vanished night, the murmur of drums during your last dance. You have lived enough to choose this moment. On your own terms, you look to Charmian. Help me. She kneels. Together, you lift the cloth. The asp is there, small, coiled, quiet. You place it near your arm. It flicks its tongue, sensing the end. You do not flinch. The moment is gentle, not fierce, not frightening. A brush against the skin, a warmth, then a chill. Your breath slows. Iris begins to weep. Charmian clasps your hand. You hold it tightly. Don't let them find me alive. You whisper. They nod. You lean back. The room begins to blur, but your mind remains clear. You see the Nile. You see the lighthouse. You see Caesarion. Safe. Free. You smile. Because this ending, it's yours. Not Octavian's, not Rome's. Yours. No chains, no spectacle. No one rewriting your name in someone else's story. Just a queen meeting her ending, as she always lived, with purpose. Chapter 7. You aren't supposed to be conscious. Not anymore. The asp's venom moves fast, slipping through blood like a whisper through gauze, numbing muscle, stealing breath. That's the story. That's what they'll write. But you, ever the performer, still have a few lines left. The cold seeps upward from your wrist. The burn of the bite fades into a deep ache. It's spreading slowly now, a curious warmth in your chest that shouldn't be there. Your breath shudders, but your mind, somehow, stays clear. Clearer than it has in weeks. As if your body is giving you a final favor, one last curtain call before it lets go. Charmian's fingers grip yours too tightly. You open your eyes barely. Her face swims into view. Her cheeks are wet. So is Iris's. Both kneel beside you, trembling like girls again. You remember them laughing once, splashing in the Nile during the Festival of Lights. That was years ago, before Rome, before the gods grew silent. Now you manage to whisper, voice like parchment. Charmian hesitates. Her lips press into a line so tight it almost disappears. Then she nods. Iris reaches for the second basket. It's smaller, wrapped in linen. Inside, a second asp lies curled around itself like a pendant of death. Charmian doesn't flinch when she uncovers it. She doesn't plead or protest. She simply lifts it with the same grace she once used to arrange your hair with lapis pins. She lowers the asp to her own arm. Its fangs flash and then sink in. Her mouth opens, but she makes no sound. She bows forward, body folding like a fan. Iris does the same. No screams, no drama, just loyalty distilled. The asp slides away after the work is done, coiling into shadow at the base of the bed. It's satisfied. You are not, because you're still breathing. Your vision fractures, sharp and wet at the edges, but you're still here, lying in a room that smells of figs and loyalty and death, while your body disobeys the script. That's when the pounding starts, heavy fists against the chamber doors. You know that knock. Roman. They're coming. Your final act must now compete with timing. You shift on the divan. Your limbs feel like stone. A cold sheen spreads down your ribs. Every breath is a labor, like dragging silk through water. Still, you smile, because it's always been like this. The Romans arrive late again. Outside the chamber, voices bark in Latin. Footsteps echo across the tiles. You hear the clang of armor, the groan of a hinge. Then, the door bursts open. Light floods the room, and Rome steps in. 3 men, maybe 4. You don't count. One wears the breastplate of an officer. The others are soldiers. Their eyes scan the room, slow and stunned, as if expecting a trap. Then they see you. Then they see the bodies. Iris slumped like a statue. Charmian still gripping your fingers, frozen in place. You in the middle of it all, draped in white, lips blue, skin already paling. The officer steps forward, careful. He doesn't speak at first, just crouches near, frowning. She's alive, he mutters in Latin. His voice is flat. No reverence, just calculation. Another soldier steps forward with a wineskin. Orders. Fetch the physician, the officer says. Octavian wants her breathing. He leans closer, his shadow stretching across your body. You blink slowly. He sees. She's still conscious, he murmurs. You want to laugh, to tell him what a shame it is that he's here now, at the tail end of everything, just in time to realize he's too late. Instead, you whisper. The words barely rise, thin as steam. You lost. His brows knit together. What? My death, you rasp, was mine. He stares at you like you're some myth made flesh, which to be fair you are. Then, a second wave of footsteps. Octavian enters. You know it's him without turning. The air changes when he walks in, becomes colder, stiffer, more self-satisfied. It's the air of men who win not because they're brave, but because they wait for the brave to destroy themselves. He says nothing for a long moment, just surveys the room with quiet calculation. The figs, the basket, the ass coiled like punctuation. Then he speaks, voice smooth, dry, and as bloodless as his politics. Such a waste. You cough, a horrible sound, but still, you smirk. No, you whisper, a gift. He steps closer. He smells like dust and conquest and cheap Roman oil. No frankincense, no myrrh, just efficiency. You could have lived, he says. You manage a whisper, not like that. Octavian studies you. You study him back. This boy, this marble-faced tactician with a god complex and a senator's spine, he'll go on to rule an empire. They'll name months after him. He'll stand atop marble steps and declare peace while the provinces bleed beneath his sandals. But he'll never be loved. Not like you. Not by the poets. Not by the storytellers. Not by the breathless girls who stare at the moon and whisper your name like a spell. He'll live forever. But you'll live in dreams. That's the difference. He gestures sharply. Take her, he says. A physician rushes forward with some bitter tonic. Another Roman grabs your arm. Your final breath catches. But it's too late. Too little. The venom wins, just as you planned. As your vision dims, the last thing you see is Octavian's face. Angry. Not at your death, but at your control of it. You die knowing this. You denied him your shame. You denied him your surrender. You denied him your applause. And in doing so, you became what he feared most. Immortal. Chapter 8. There's no such thing as silence in death. Not really. Even now, especially now, there's a rustle beneath the veil. You hover somewhere between the Nile's current and the wind through papyrus reeds, and it sounds like all the women who came before you whispering through your bones. They are waiting. You drift. Not up, not down, just through. And yet the story doesn't pause. Not for your breathless body. Not for the queen on the bed, drained and pale with two faithful shadows at her side. History never pauses. The Romans make sure of that. You are not even cold before they start cataloging your possessions. Before scribes are summoned and scrolls unrolled and chests pried open with greedy fingers. Before Octavian walks your palace like a guest overstaying his welcome, poking through tapestries and finger-painting victory across your walls. He does not touch your body, not directly, but he watches from a distance. You can almost feel his eyes on you even now, somewhere above your still form, calculating how to word your death for Senate ears. The Egyptian queen, overcome with grief, took her own life. That sort of thing. Clean, manageable, a story Rome can control. Except it won't be. You've rigged the ending. The guards shift around your chamber like clumsy priests, unsure whether to bow or shield their faces. You left them no instructions. That was the point. Outside, Alexandria is folding into itself. The people whisper your name through the lattice of the market stalls. Some say you turned into a hawk and flew into the sun. Others say the asp was never real, that you drank poison with a smile and mocked the gods as it burned your throat. Even now, you are becoming legend. They remove your body carefully. wrapped in linen, draped in royal colors, deep cobalt, black and gold, a final procession through the marble hallways. But no crowd, no morning trumpets. Octavian does not permit public grief. Of course not. He knows grief is power. He orders the walls scrubbed of your symbols. No more Eye of Horus over the doors. No more painted sigils of Isis on the columns. No more cartouches with your name. But some stains don't scrub clean. He cannot wash the scent of your incense from the stones. He cannot erase the song of your footsteps in the corridors. He cannot unteach the girls who still look to the moon and call you Nekbet, guardian, goddess, mother of sorcery and sorrow. Charmian and Iris are buried beside you. Eventually. At first, the Romans consider displaying you all, one dramatic tableau to drive home their conquest. But Octavian refuses, not because he's merciful, because he's afraid. The way your body still seems to own the room unsettles him. A corpse should not command silence, but yours does. So he sends the bodies to the mausoleum, the same place Antony lies, already days gone, arms folded like a tired warrior. They lay you beside him. Your hand brushes his, or so they say. Historians still argue whether you were buried together at all. Some say Octavian kept your bodies separate, fearing a myth would bloom from your bones. Others believe he let you have that last touch, hoping to reduce your legend to a footnote in a general's tragic tale. No one knows for sure. Your tomb, if it exists, is still lost. Somewhere beneath modern Alexandria, beneath layers of sea and silt and stories, divers search, archaeologists dig, tourists whisper. But no one finds you, because you never stayed. Not really. Your spirit lingered only long enough to see the final chessboard. Khazarian, your son, he's the final piece. And Octavian knows it, so he begins his hunt. It's quiet at first. Interrogations behind closed doors, bribes to palace staff, coins slipped into the hands of frightened courtiers. He doesn't shout about it. That's not his style. He lets the rumor bloom like mold. The boy lives. The boy runs. The boy is coming. He dispatches messengers. He scours Upper Egypt. He sends ships down the Nile with orders written in code. You watch, because in this place between life and myth, you can. You hover near the reeds. You ride the desert winds. You slide into Octavian's dreams and make the candle flicker. And still the boy escapes. For a while, he moves from temple to temple, guided by old priests and old loyalties. They smuggle him in baskets, bury him beneath sacred offerings, teach him to speak like a servant. He learns to hide his eyes, but not his spine. And then one day, he stops. He tries to turn back. Your son, your fire, forgets the plan. He believes, as you once did, that blood carries weight, that Rome might honor what's in his veins. He's wrong. The trap is quick. Octavian's agents capture him outside Hermonthis. The boy doesn't cry, doesn't plead. He stands tall, says nothing. They say he looked so much like Caesar then, the centurions hesitated. But the order had already been written. No Caesar lives but the one named Augustus. They strangle him quietly, no blade, no fanfare. Historians still debate whether Octavian ordered it personally. Some blame Agrippa. Others believe it was a miscommunication. It wasn't. You feel it when he dies. It's like a thread in your chest snapping clean. For the first time in this twilight world, you weep. Not for yourself, not for Antony, but for the future you tried to buy with everything you had. The line ends with him. And yet, even that isn't the end. Because something stirs in Alexandria. A rebellion of whispers. Young women begin tying blue cords around their wrists, the color of your favorite gown. Midwives name daughters Cleopatra, Tia. A statue appears in a poor district, carved from leftover marble, depicting a woman holding an asp in one hand and a scroll in the other. The Romans knock it down. A week later, 2 more rise. And somewhere in a courtyard, hidden from the new governor's eyes, someone paints on a wall in red ink. She would rather die than kneel. You smile. Because that's the real immortality. Not gold, not temples, not marble tombs, but memory, stories, dreams. A child in Thebes whispers your name before sleep, clutching a carved doll in your image. A merchant in Rhodes still tells the tale of how you once made the Nile flood by blinking. A soldier in Gaul wears an amulet with your sigil etched onto it. He doesn't know what it means, only that it's for courage. You become bigger than Egypt, bigger than Rome. You become a warning, and a wish, and that is the only kind of death that matters, because it's not an ending at all, it's a beginning. Chapter 9. Time forgets everything, eventually. But not you? Not yet. Your body may be dust, your bones claimed by the salt and the sand, but your shadow clings to the world like perfume clings to silk. You're still here, Cleopatra, because no one quite dares to let go of you. They try, of course. Octavian, now Augustus, does his best to cauterize your memory. He pens laws that flatten your story into a cautionary tale. The foreign queen, the temptress, the disruptor of Roman order. He tells the Senate that you bewitched good Roman men with your exotic charms, that you wrapped Antony around your little finger until he forgot his duties. He cannot admit the truth, that you matched him, that you ruled alongside gods, not beneath them, that you played politics like a liar, sweet and sharp all at once. Instead, Rome carves you into a mask. It's what they do best. They turn you into propaganda. Coins minted with your profile disappear from circulation. Your name becomes a whisper in textbooks, a punchline at banquets, a footnote beneath the weight of Caesar's story. But the thing about masks is, they slip. And Rome, for all its marble and nets, cannot smother you completely, because you've already escaped. You're in the ink-stained fingers of scribes in Syria, who copy your story at night by oil lamp, their eyes wide as they write your name in letters taller than the margins will allow. You're in the plays performed by street actors in Egypt, who wear golden wigs and hiss like asps to laughter and applause. You're in the dreams of every girl forced to marry a man she doesn't love, every woman silenced in council halls, every queen who wears her crown with a weight no man can fathom. And you're especially in the minds of those strange new poets from across the sea. The Romans call them Greeks reborn. They call you something else, divine, muse, siren, even witch. You'd like that last one. There's power in fear after all. Centuries pass. Your statues crumble, your scrolls fade, the temples of Isis fall silent as new gods rise, first Jupiter, then Jesus, then others too numerous and hungry to count. But still, your name endures, not always the truth of it, not the you who laughed with your half-sisters as you skipped stones across the Nile, not the you who studied geometry under the torchlight or debated trade policy until your advisors begged for sleep. No, the world rarely remembers women for their intelligence, but they do remember your eyes, your voice, your death. And that's enough, because death, when done well, can outlast any empire. Historians still debate whether you actually use an asp. Some suggest a poison smuggled in a hairpin. Others say it was a draught slipped beneath your tongue. Some, bolder ones, suggest you didn't die at all, that your servants swapped your body with a wax double, and you fled east disguised as a traitor, living out your days among incense and silence. Of course you didn't, but the fact that they need to believe it, that's a kind of immortality too. Your tomb remains hidden. Oh, how they looked for it. Every decade, a new headline, Cleopatra's tomb may be found. Scholars argue over maps, dig in temples long buried, chase clues carved into door lintels and coin edges and whispered through ancient prayer. But you remain elusive, perhaps because you were never meant to be found, perhaps because you are everywhere already. They write books now, fat ones with gloss covers and speculative titles. They call you the last pharaoh, the queen of the Nile, the seductress of Rome. They argue over your skin color, your ancestry, your accent. They put your name in their search bars and try to decode your heart through algorithms. As if a queen can be reduced to pixels. As if a life can be excavated like stone. You laugh, softly, even now, because you know the truth. You were never just the last pharaoh. You were the last sovereign, the last who dared to say no to empire, to live on her terms, to die without asking permission. You, Cleopatra VI Philopator, the father-loving queen who ruled not by chance but by skill, who spoke 9 languages and read 10 scripts, who rewrote alliances with a flick of your wrist and steered entire economies with a glance. You were a storm in linen robes, and storms don't die quietly. Even today, especially today, you live. In museums, behind glass, a golden diadem labeled possibly Cleopatra's. In lecture halls, where students scribble notes and bite their pens and try to imagine what it meant to rule. In films where actresses darken their eyes and fail to capture your gravity. In memes, in makeup lines, in dreams. And maybe most of all, in that strange quiet moment right before sleep, when a girl somewhere wonders what it would feel like to wear power like perfume. To be impossible, to be unforgettable, to be you. She closes her eyes. She says your name. And somewhere, the Nile ripples, Chapter 10. The wind hums softly through the papyrus reeds. You feel it, not as you once did, in the vivid, aching pulse of life, but as a whisper brushing against the skin of memory. A cool breath, slipping through the columns of your old palace, stirring the linen curtains, rustling the shadows that gather in forgotten corners. Even now, long after breath has left your body, the world turns, steady, relentless, indifferent, and yet, somehow, still listening. You stand, though not as flesh and bone, but as thought, as echo, as dream. The Queen of Egypt, the last pharaoh, the keeper of a crown forged in both sunlight and sorrow. The asp has not yet come. You sit alone in the hush of a chamber steeped in twilight. And in this final hour, when time folds inward and the veil between worlds thins, you dream. You dream of the Nile, wide and eternal. It winds beneath the stars like a ribbon of ink, carrying boats, stories, lives. You see yourself as a girl again, barefoot on the palace stones, laughing in the warm breeze, your hair braided with hibiscus flowers. You remember studying by oil lamp, whispering Greek verses and Egyptian prayers in the same breath. The scrolls smelled of cinnamon and dust, and your tutor's voice was patient as water, always returning, always shaping you. They will not expect you to be wise, he once said, so you must be brilliant. You were, and more. In the hush of the dream, Alexandria lives again. The library rises tall, endless, aglow with golden lamplight. You walk its corridors, tracing your fingers along rows of knowledge older than memory. Mathematics, astronomy, poetry, medicine. Ideas stacked like treasures, scroll upon scroll. Outside, the harbor breathes salt into the sky. The lighthouse burns bright, guiding sailors home. People call your name with reverence. Cleopatra, Philopator, mother-loving goddess. You remember how it felt to rule. Not the luxury, though there was that, but the balance. The constant weighing of love and loyalty, of ambition and fear. Every decision a thread in a tapestry stretched across borders, languages, and empires. You danced it well, too well, perhaps, for those who feared what you represented. You dream of Rome, of men with iron eyes and ambition like thunder. They saw your kingdom not as a jewel but a prize, a thing to conquer. But you were never a prize. You were the player, not the pawn. You remember Caesar, how he surprised you. A man wrapped in legend, yet capable of gentleness. He brought you no easy safety, but in his arms you glimpsed a world where Rome and Egypt might stand side by side. Then came Antony, not a god, not perfect, but flawed in a way that matched your own, proud, fierce, full of fire and foolishness. Together you lived like stars burning just a little too brightly, his hand in yours, his voice against the sea. Let them write songs about our fall, he once laughed. So long as they sing it, you stir in your dream, because now you know how it ends. You know what waits in the basket. You know what Octavian wants, not just victory, but your humiliation. A queen in chains, a triumph carved from your defeat. But you won't give him that. In your dream, you sit taller. The linen robe clings softly to your arms. Your crown is gone, but not your dignity. You are still sovereign in your silence. You are still choosing. And in this space between memory and myth, something strange happens. You feel the centuries turn. You feel time ripple like water beneath a passing boat. And in that ripple, you glimpse what comes after. You drift into history, not as a ghost, but as a story. You find yourself in scrolls written in shaky ink by monks who dare not forget. You shimmer in the margins of Greek poems and Roman letters. You pass through the hands of Arab scholars, European queens, and curious children with wide eyes and starlit questions. They paint you in gold leaf and oil. They speak your name on stages. They turn you into legend and legend into lesson. The Greeks dreamed of goddesses. The Romans feared rebellion. But the world, oh, the world remembers your choices. They debate your end. Was it the asp? A dagger? A final cup of wine laced with sleep? You smile in the dream. Let them wonder. Because you were never meant to be solved. You were meant to be remembered. And still, the centuries turn. You see yourself in Renaissance portraits, all velvet and pearls. In Enlightenment debates, your name wrapped in ink and fire. In black and white films, then color, then screens. Cleopatra, queen, seductress, ruler, survivor. Each era reinvents you, and yet you remain. The girl at the Nile, the woman on the throne, the mind behind the crown. You are whispered into bedtime stories, painted into classrooms, and tucked into dreams. And now, tonight, you are here, a figure beneath a starry sky, wrapped in linen, waiting for the ask, but not afraid, because you know how this ends, not in sorrow, not in shame, but in strength, because queens do not fall, they transform. You dream one last time, of your son, laughing somewhere far from war, of Antony sailing through a sky full of stars, of Egypt, golden in the light of memory, and as you begin to fade, not into death, but into story, you smile, because you are not gone, you are becoming, a dream, a lesson, a spark in the dark. So sleep now, little one. Let the reeds whisper, let the Nile carry you. And remember this, power, beauty, and courage can belong in one life. And in dreams, especially the dreams of queens, anything is possible, even immortality. Chapter 11. The night deepens around you, wrapping Alexandria in a cloak of quiet mystery. You stand at the edge of the ancient harbor, where once the great ships of Egypt's fleet lay anchored like mighty beasts breathing slow beneath the stars. The silver moonlight spills over the water, turning ripples into shimmering threads that dance like fireflies on a summer's eve. Here, at the harbor's edge, the city breathes, alive in memory and dream alike. The gentle lapping of waves against wooden hulls whispers secrets from centuries past. You can almost hear the creak of timbers, the soft murmur of sailors swapping tales beneath the canvas sails. Their voices are low, hushed with the reverence of stories told and retold, of victories snatched from the jaws of defeat, of alliances forged in the flickering light of torchlit nights. The scent of salt rides the breeze, mingling with the rich perfume of myrrh and incense that once filled Alexandria's bustling streets. It mingles with distant sounds, vendors calling out wares, their voices weaving through the alleys like threads of song, the laughter of children darting between market stalls, their joyous cries echoing off sun-warmed stones. Alexandria was a symphony of life and culture, a crossroads where East and West met in a dazzling mosaic of ideas and beliefs. Greek philosophers debated under olive trees, their voices weaving logic and wonder. Egyptian priests chanted sacred hymns within shadowed temples, their words ringing with ancient power. Roman envoys moved beneath marble colonnades, plotting and scheming in the ever-turning game of empire. You remember walking those streets, draped in linen dyed the richest purple, the color of royalty and ambition, your golden diadem catching the sun's fading light like a crown forged from dawn itself. Each step you took was a proclamation, a bold statement carved in silk and resolve. Power, you knew, was never a gift. It was a relentless tide to be mastered, a flame to be wielded without getting burned. Behind the grand ceremonies and silken veils, your days were woven with strategy and sacrifice. Every alliance was a delicate dance, every smile a calculated move and game of shadows. The court buzzed with whispers, plots as shifting as desert sands, betrayals hidden beneath layers of silk and perfume, ambitions masked by honeyed words. But you thrived in this storm. Fluent in 9 tongues, versed in poetry and politics, you knew the names and faces of every soldier, senator, and spy who crossed your path. You ruled not merely by birthright, but by intellect and sheer force of will. You were not just a queen, you were a force. The world around you knew it. Mark Antony, a man as fierce and passionate as the desert sun, was drawn to your fire. Together, you challenged Rome's rising tide, refusing to bow to Caesar's hair and his sprawling empire. Yet power demands its price. The armies of Rome advanced relentlessly. The walls of your palace trembled beneath the weight of siege, the once glorious city beginning to crumble beneath the relentless march of fate. In those final days, as hope flickered like a dying flame, you made a choice. A decision as bold and unyielding as the woman you were. The choice to end your life on your own terms. To deny your enemies the triumph of your capture. To preserve your dignity, your sovereignty, even in death. The asp, the silent assassin, became the symbol of your defiance. Whether it was the truth or myth, the story took hold, whispered through the ages as the queen who met the empire's grasp with venomous grace. And now in this dream you stand once more by the harbor, the city you built, its towering libraries filled with scrolls of knowledge, its temples echoing with prayers, its streets alive with a million footsteps, fades slowly into legend. The empire crumbles. The years roll on like the endless river Nile, but stories endure. You are that story. A spark in the dark, a flame passed from generation to generation. Alive in the hearts of those who dare to remember. As the moon's light kisses your face, you breathe deeply, the cool night air filling your lungs like a promise. Beneath the endless sky, by the water that witnessed your triumphs and trials, you are free. free from the weight of crowns and thrones, free from the whispers of history's conquerors, free to be forever the queen who dared to dream. And as the stars blink softly above, you smile, because some legacies are more powerful than empires, and some queens never truly fall. Chapter 12. The breeze shifts once more, a gentle sigh that carries with it the faint, delicate scents of lotus blossoms and warm cinnamon. These fragrances drift softly through the vast halls of the great library of Alexandria, stirring memories that cling like ancient dust to towering shelves, memories of wisdom and wonder, of voices long silent but never forgotten. You stand amid the endless rows of scrolls and codices, each one a fragile vessel containing the dreams and discoveries of countless souls. Here, knowledge was a treasure more precious than gold or jewels, a flame that illuminated the darkness of ignorance and superstition. And you, Cleopatra, were not just a queen clad in silk and jewels. You were a guardian of this flame, a scholar whose mind burned as fiercely as your heart, a patron of learning, a weaver of intellect and ambition. In these halls, you nurtured an oasis of enlightenment amid a world roiling with unrest. You gathered the brightest minds beneath your roof, Egyptian priests who studied the stars, Greek philosophers who debated the nature of existence, mathematicians mapping the language of the cosmos, and physicians seeking the secrets of the human body. You recall the endless nights spent by flickering oil lamps, discussing astronomy with priests who spoke of distant planets and celestial orbits, unraveling the mysteries of the human form with doctors who wielded knowledge both ancient and new. You translated texts from languages you mastered, Aramaic, Greek, Egyptian, Latin, bridging worlds with your words. Your intellect was a blade honed sharp, cutting through the thick, patriarchal shadows that draped over your world like a heavy veil. In a time when women, even queens, were expected to be ornaments or pawns in the grand game of power, you wielded knowledge as both shield and sword. Each fact you learned, every language you mastered, every philosophical debate you entered, was a deliberate strike against the limitations imposed upon you by birth and tradition. While many saw only a queen's beauty, soft, enchanting, and fleeting, you revealed a mind fierce and unyielding, a force that shaped empires and altered destinies. Your wisdom was not simply a personal treasure, but a weapon in the perilous politics that swirled around you. The great library was far more than a collection of scrolls and texts. It was a symbol, a beacon of Egypt's brilliance and sovereignty. Its grand halls whispered promises of progress, possibility, and enlightenment in a world darkened by conflict and conquest. Here, knowledge was power, tangible, alive, and defiant. But as with every great flame, envy and suspicion gathered like ominous storm clouds on the horizon. The Roman legions, relentless and ravenous, marched closer and closer, their ambition poised to extinguish the light you so fiercely protected. The city's heartbeat quickened with tension, the air thickened with dread. And then the siege came. Amid the chaos and clashing swords, the flames appeared. Whether sparked by accident or deliberate act, the fire raced through the library's precious collections, licking greedily at the fragile scrolls and manuscripts that held the wisdom of millennia. You could only watch, helpless, as knowledge curled into ash and smoke, rising and vanishing into the night sky like lost dreams. Some whisper that Julius Caesar himself gave the order amidst the turmoil, cruel calculus in a brutal war. Others insist it was a tragic accident, the price of a city under siege. Whatever the truth, the result was the same. The sacred trove of human understanding, painstakingly gathered and guarded, was consumed by fire. But even in this devastation, hope flickered stubbornly like a single candle in a storm. Hidden away in secret chambers and shadowed corners, copies of precious texts were carefully concealed beneath floorboards, inside hollowed statues, and in the hands of loyal scribes. These keepers of knowledge memorized entire works, carrying the flame in their minds when the written word was lost to the flames. Priests and scholars whispered the ancient secrets to their apprentices under moonlight, passing down wisdom as a sacred trust, refusing to let it die. The spirit of the great library, like you, refused to be extinguished. Across the centuries, your legacy has been woven into the very fabric of human history, thread by precious thread, in patterns both bold and subtle. The Renaissance thinkers, those brilliant minds hungry for rediscovery, found their way to fragments of the knowledge you so fiercely protected. From the ashes of loss, they unearthed sparks that would ignite a rebirth of art, science, and philosophy, reviving a world that had nearly forgotten how to dream. Artists and inventors, poets and philosophers, all drew from the wellspring of wisdom you nurtured. The very foundations of modern thought bear the faintest echoes of the scrolls once held within those grand halls, the whispers of astronomy, mathematics, medicine, and philosophy that shaped civilizations long after the flames died down. And in the modern age, as humanity reaches outward toward the stars and inward toward the secrets of the mind, explorers and seekers stand tall on the shoulders of giants you once sheltered. The paths they blaze through space, the discoveries they make in laboratories, the stories they tell, all bear your indelible mark, even if many have forgotten the name behind it. All of this despite relentless efforts by time, conquerors, and skeptics alike to erase your name, your story, your power. Because knowledge, like power, is a force too mighty to be chained, too fierce to be buried beneath shifting sands or forgotten in the dust of history. And neither can you. You smile softly, a smile that holds not just the triumph of survival, but the quiet grace of one who has seen empires rise and fall, yet remains unbroken. It is the smile of a soul who dared to dream not only of empire, but of enlightenment, who wielded wisdom as a crown brighter than gold, a victory no fire can consume, a victory that echoes still, carried by the winds across deserts and mountains, beneath shifting sands and beneath the endless sky, timeless, unyielding, eternal. Chapter 13. The desert night wraps around you like a soft blanket, and you drift again, this time not into sleep, but into memory, into dream. The stars above twinkle like the jeweled diadems of your youth, and the air is thick with ancient warmth. You find yourself walking barefoot through a vision, sand warm beneath your feet, moonlight bathing the world in silver. Before you, Alexandria stirs, not the quiet, defeated city it has become, but the Alexandria of your triumphs. You hear the bustling marketplace awaken as if from slumber, alive with the voices of merchants and the clamor of coins exchanging hands. You smell the spices of 100 lands, cumin, coriander, cinnamon, and frankincense, carried on the soft breeze like offerings from the gods. In this dream, time bends and the city is yours again. You walk its streets as Cleopatra, queen and mother, ruler and woman, more than myth, more than the image others have painted. Children run laughing through the streets, chasing each other between columns and carts. Sailors unload goods from Nubia and Cyprus. Scribes argue over the price of scrolls. And all of it, all this vibrant life, pulses from a heart you helped build. You remember when you first sat on the throne, barely more than a girl, with eyes sharp enough to read a room like scripture, and a will forged of steel beneath golden silk. They underestimated you then. They thought you would be a puppet. But even at 17, you were already a strategist, already a queen in soul, if not yet in power. In the dream, you glide past the harbor where ships bob like silver fish on the moonlit water. You hear the creak of sails and the shouts of captains swearing in 10 different tongues. You remember how you learned them all, languages were keys, and you collected them like jewels. Greek, Egyptian, Aramaic, Latin. Your words could charm, command, or conquer. You see again the day you first locked eyes with Julius Caesar, not the legend, but the man, furrowed brow, calculating eyes, the scent of parchment and old leather clinging to him. You remember how you had yourself smuggled in to see him, rolled in a carpet like a secret. And oh, how his eyes widened when you emerged, not just from surprise, but from respect. He saw your mind before he saw your crown. He called you Egypt, not a queen, not a ruler, but the very embodiment of your land. And you became that. You wore Egypt like a mantle, bearing its burdens and its beauty, its past and its peril. But tonight it is not Caesar who haunts your dreams. It is Antony. He comes to you not as the defeated general, but as the man you knew beside the Nile, beneath the stars, drunk on wine and poetry. In this dream, you are young again, lying on the cool marble of your palace rooftop, laughing at the constellations as if they were old friends. He recites verses from Homer, and you correct his Greek. He laughs, that deep, honey-warm laugh, and you feel safe. For once, politics fall away, and you are simply two hearts beating beneath the desert sky. You remember his strength, yes, but also his softness, the way he spoke to your children as if they were already rulers of the world, the way he held your hand during long councils when the fate of empires rested on your shoulders. But dreams are honest even when kind. And now, in the shifting sands of sleep, you remember the end. The fleet burning, your allies deserting, Rome closing in. You remember the silence of your chambers as the news came. Antony, fallen on his sword, your heart broken but not bowed. Even here, in the deepest corner of your dream, you feel the weight of what is to come. The asp waits in a basket not far from your bed. Its venom sleeps now, but soon it will carry you across the veil between worlds. You are not afraid. You have lived every moment of your life awake, fully alive. You have walked with gods and slept beside legends. You have ruled a kingdom whose history stretches beyond Rome, beyond Greece, beyond time itself. Now in the silence of this dream, you walk again through your palace. The columns rise like tree trunks in a moonlit forest, draped in gauze and echoing with whispers of the past. You pass the statue of Isis, your namesake, your symbol. The goddess stares ahead with calm certainty, and you nod to her, queen to queen. The dream carries you further through halls filled with memories. There is the room where you studied star maps with scholars from Babylon. There is the garden where you bathed your newborns in Nile water and whispered their destinies. There is the throne room where you faced foreign envoys with nothing but your voice and your velvet gaze. Each step is a farewell, but not one of sorrow, because you know this: they will remember you, not just in scrolls or busts of marble, not just in Roman cautionary tales or Egyptian hymns, but in every story of a woman who refuses to yield, in every leader who dares to hold beauty and brilliance in equal measure, in every child who dreams of building something that outlives them. And so, as the dream darkens to twilight, you sit upon your bed one final time. The linen is cool against your skin. The asp, still coiled and waiting, knows its purpose, but you take a moment longer. You look to the horizon, where the first blush of dawn paints the sky in gold and rose. It is the Nile's gift, this sunrise, and it is yours too. You whisper a blessing in ancient Egyptian, one your mother once sang to you. May the gods guard your ka, and may your name never fade. Then you close your eyes, and in the dream, before the bite, before the silence, there is one last vision. A lotus blooming on the river, and in its petals, peace. Chapter 14. You stand on the cusp of legend now. The sky above Alexandria is no longer blue. It is bronze and bruised, heavy with smoke and sorrow. The wind shifts like breath through a dying city, carrying the scent of burning scrolls, wilted jasmine, and ancient fear. Somewhere, a temple bell rings, low and slow, like a heartbeat fading into dusk. The final act draws near, silent as a sandstorm just beyond the horizon. Within the palace walls, your court trembles. Once it was filled with laughter, poetry, and debate. Now it is a hall of shadows, echoes of ambition, murmurs of betrayal. The men who once swore loyalty now avoid your gaze, speaking in hushed Latin and bitter Greek. You watch them closely, not with anger, not with grief, only with understanding. They are not traitors. They are survivors, and the age of survival has arrived. Mark Antony walks those same marble halls like a ghost, once proud and radiant, now unraveling. You see him only in fragments now, a shadow at dusk, a voice behind a door, a hand clutching a goblet too tightly. The battles have taken much from him. Comrades, honor, clarity. But not love. In your final moments together, he presses his forehead to yours and whispers, "No Rome can take what we were." You believe him. But love cannot hold back the tide. Octavian comes, cold-eyed and measured, not with fury, but with inevitability. His ships fill the harbor like iron locusts. His banners rise like storm clouds. You know what he wants, not just Egypt, but you, not just your life, but your defeat. He will take your legacy and parade it like a trophy through Roman streets, turning your story into his victory song. But you will not allow that. That night, you retreat to the palace gardens, the only part of the city still untouched by war. The lotus blossoms sway on their stems, pearled with dew and moonlight. You walk barefoot across the grass, where you once played as a girl. You hear the voices of your sisters, distant laughter echoing in the air. You remember your father's hand guiding yours along ancient maps, teaching you where the power flows and where it breaks. You sit beside the reflecting pool. Your face stares back at you, calm and regal, crowned not just in gold, but in memory. You think of Khazarian, your son, your hope, the blood of two worlds in his veins. You have protected him from the game long enough, but now he must run. You whisper his name to the stars like a prayer cast across the sky. Live, lead, remember. And as the stars begin to fade into dawn, the world begins to end. The clash of metal, the scream of horses, the hiss of fire against stone. Rome storms the gates. Antony is lost to the chaos, carried out on a tide of blood and sorrow. You do not cry. The tears were spent long ago. You walk to your chamber, each step echoing like a drumbeat, your spine straight, your eyes clear. You summon your most loyal servants, the few who remain. A quiet room, a basket woven tight. The asp within waits, coiled like fate. Some say it was hidden among figs. Others say it was offered in a golden bowl, like a gift from the gods. Some even say it never happened, that the snake is a myth, and you took poison instead, or let the Romans win. But you know the truth. You chose this, because a queen bows to no conqueror. Because dignity cannot be stolen, it must be surrendered, and you will not surrender. You lift the asp gently, its scaled body cool and alive in your hand. You do not flinch. You press it to your skin, just above your heart. The bite is swift. A sharp kiss, then heat, then silence. The world blurs. You recline in your robes, still adorned in gold and lapis, your head held high. You feel no fear. Instead, you feel light, like water flowing back to the Nile, like breath returning to the sky. You drift between worlds, neither here nor there. And in those final moments, your dream returns. The marketplace alive with color, the Nile rippling with moonlight, the sound of Caesar's laughter, Antony's whisper, the scent of lotus and incense. The roar of Rome cannot touch you now. You are already legend, already beyond the reach of emperors and historians, already eternal. Let them say what they will. Let them twist your name in scrolls and statues, paint you as villain or vixen, saint or sorceress. You are none of those things. You are Cleopatra, daughter of the sun, queen of the Nile, last pharaoh of Egypt. And though your empire may crumble to dust, your story will rise again and again, carried on the tongues of poets and dreamers, whispered beneath starlit skies to those who still believe in queens who refuse to kneel. Sleep now, mighty one. The desert is quiet, the Nile flows on, and your name is forever. Chapter 15. The last whispers of your story echo softly into the night, settling like a breeze over the shifting sands of time. No longer bound to palaces or scrolls, you move like wind through centuries, both everywhere and nowhere, a name spoken in candlelight, presence felt in silence. You have become more than queen. You have become story. Across oceans and empires, from marble halls to moonlit bedsides, your tale lingers, not frozen in stone, not confined to history books, but alive in poems and paintings, in the hush of a scholar's breath, in the wonder of a child's eyes. You are retold and reimagined, not because of how your life ended, but because of how boldly it was lived. Yes, the world has painted you in many shades. They called you seductress and sovereign, goddess and conspirator, visionary and destroyer. But none of these masks define you. They only reveal how deeply you stirred the waters of the world. What they feared in you was not your beauty, nor your power. It was your will, your refusal to be small in a world that demanded your silence. And that, above all, is what lives on. For in the quiet space between fact and fable, you remain, undaunted, unbroken, unforgettable. The Nile still flows, as it always has, bearing the weight of stars and secrets. It carries your name gently across its surface, a song in its current. Sometimes it is whispered in ancient tongues, sometimes in the hush of a breeze rustling through reeds. But always it is there. Tonight the sky is clear. The same stars you once traced from your palace rooftop now glow over distant lands. And somewhere someone is looking up at them, just as you once did. Eyes full of wonder, heart full of questions. They may not know your whole story, but they will feel it. Because you are no longer bound by crown or empire. You have passed beyond the reach of emperors and historians, beyond tombs and temples. You belong to something larger now, to memory, to myth, to the dreams that flicker just before sleep. So rest now, Cleopatra, not as queen, not as consort, not as conqueror, but as legend. Let the world carry you gently, as the Nile once carried your voice to its delta, a voice that sang of strength wrapped in silk, of wisdom hidden behind a gaze, of a woman who stood unshaken before the tide of empires. Let the stars hold you in their ancient light, the same light that once shimmered on your palace stones, that guided your ships through shadow and storm, that lit your steps when kingdoms trembled, and even gods seemed to listen. Let your name move like wind across the desert, etched in the hush between sand and sky, not carved merely in monuments, but in moments, in the breath before a bold decision, in the hush of a girl daring to speak. And let those who come after, those who dream of leading, of resisting, of rising, finding your story not only beauty and bravery, but a blueprint for defiance, a path lit by intellect and fire, a reminder that greatness begins with the refusal to be small. Because the world will always need a voice like yours, unafraid to speak, unwilling to yield, The world will always need a queen among the stars. So sleep now, beloved daughter of the Nile. The desert is calm, the river flows. The night wraps you in velvet and myth, and in the hush before morning, your name moves softly through time. Eternal, unfading, alive. The night's tale winds down gently, like the last flicker of a candle's flame. You feel the soft weight of history's breath, a lullaby whispered across millennia. The world quiets, the stars twinkle a little brighter, and the hum of the past fades into a peaceful stillness. Let your thoughts drift like the Nile's slow current, carrying away the day's worries and welcoming the calm of night. Imagine the scent of lotus flowers, the cool touch of desert air, the soft rustle of papyrus leaves. Sleep is a gift, a journey as profound as any throne or empire. As you close your eyes, know that stories like Cleopatra's remind us of the strength within, the courage to face the unknown, the wisdom to embrace our own power, and the grace to accept the mysteries that life holds. Good night, traveler. Dream well.